tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
Here we go. It's really my way of showing how confident we are in the vaccine.
COVID-19 vaccinations for BC's top doctor and dozens of healthcare workers around the province. Also,
my bank account was down to $11 on Thursday.
No money yet. Why some are calling BC's recovery benefit a bureaucratic minefield. And
they need our support right now.
Relief for restaurants. The province slaps a temporary cap on food delivery fees.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Should I pose for the shot? Okay. Here we go.
And with that, the person who has been front and center in BC during the pandemic receives her first dose of the Pfizer-BioNTech COVID-19 vaccine. Provincial Health Officer Dr. Bonnie Henry marking the first day of immunizations for healthcare workers on Vancouver Island. Good evening. In addition to the island, vaccinations are now also underway in Northern and Interior Health. Every region in BC now has immunizations rolling out.
That is the good news, but sadly, another 12 people have died from COVID-19. Our province's death toll is now up to 777. 444 new cases are confirmed. That's the lowest single-day amount since November 5th. BC is now over 47,500 total cases.
Hospitalizations are slightly up. 357 people currently in care, 84 of those patients in critical care or ICU. There are just under 9,500 active cases across our province. More than 4,100 people have now received the initial dose of the COVID-19 vaccine in BC.
Meanwhile, another 20 new cases of COVID-19 are being linked to the outbreak at Big White Ski Resort. Interior Health's latest update brings the total there now to 96 new cases, with many people already in self-isolation after sharing their household with some other confirmed cases. The health authority says it is safe to visit Big White as long as people stay with their immediate household group. However, it's still encouraging skiers and snowboarders in the province to stick to their local hills.
And as we showed you, BC's top doctor pulled back her sleeve today to receive the first dose of the COVID-19 vaccine.
Our Dan Burrett joins us live now with more on this. And Dan, Dr. Henry appeared to have several messages as that happened today.
Yes, protection and public confidence.
Here we go.
If you missed that, Dr. Henry says she didn't feel a thing, no pain whatsoever. She says getting vaccinated in public was her way of showing how confident they are in this vaccine and how important it is for everyone to get immunized, and in solidarity with her healthcare colleagues. Asked what she would say to people who are reluctant or fearful of this shot.
There's a lot of work that's been done to make sure that this vaccine works and that it's safe. And I have full confidence that it is both of those things.
As you mentioned, the first COVID vaccines were also administered in the BC Interior today. Interior Health says long-term care staff and doctors received the shots in Kelowna and Kamloops. The vaccine is now available in all BC health authorities. As you mentioned, the province says as of today, more than 4,100 people have received the first round of the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine. That vaccine comes, as we've seen, as the province notes significant spread of COVID-19 still happening in Interior and Northern Health. Tanya, Mike?
Dan, thanks very much. And when the province introduced the BC Recovery Benefit, it said the money would be in people's bank accounts just in time for Christmas.
Well, many have struggled through the busy phone lines and the crashed website to even get their applications in.
But as Tina Lovegreen reports, some are now finding out there are yet more steps to take before they can get their cash.
I was halfway through my form, and then the system crashed, and then
Linda Harris spent all day filling out her application on Friday, only to find out she needed to provide even more documentation.
And it's a huge list and challenging information to get.
A number of applicants have been asked to submit 4 more documents: a copy of their full 2019 tax return notice of assessment, their ID, and 2 bills, like a phone or utility bill, marked December 18th. But for many people, that won't come for another few weeks. And all the paperwork is supposed to be in within 30 days of the application, or it may be denied.
I'm on a pension, and that's a small amount. So I really needed, my bank account was down to $11 on Thursday. So I was really pumped to get this $500 to help.
The COVID-19 relief program is meant to put money in the pockets of British Columbians, but the extra documentation is adding a hurdle.
There's a lot of people that aren't tech savvy, such as myself, as we've learned this morning, Tina, and don't have the equipment, don't have the knowledge, and it's on they're the ones that suffer. And they're the ones that also need the support.
Others have also written to CBC News, saying they and their common law partner split expenses and don't have shared accounts or bills with both of their names on it. Or they worry about families who live in rented homes with utilities included, use prepaid cell phones, and don't have tenant insurance, all making it difficult to prove those additional documents. The government says the documentation is required if the data on the application doesn't match what's on file.
Where we might have a bit of a disconnect if there's either a transposed number or if it doesn't match up with numbers we have, then it gets diverted and staff have to verify it.
Why do they want to make it so difficult for people that need the money? It's not just for fun to shop and whatever. This is like needed money.
But now it's a race to get the paperwork in before the deadline. Tina Lovegreen, CBC News, Vancouver.
And by the way, for those who have not yet started their application process, well, you do have until June 30th of 2021 to apply. And for more information, you can head to gov.bc.ca/recovery benefit.
Tragic news from Tofino tonight. A child has died and the Integrated Major Crime Unit is now investigating.
The CBC's Mira Baines joins us live with more on this. So, Mira, what do we know so far?
Well, so far, RCMP have confirmed that a child on the Tyastanis Reserve suffered serious injuries on December 13th. And then Tofino RCMP and BC Ambulance were called to the scene, and the child was taken to get medical help. But the child died 3 days later. RCMP Corporal Chris Manceau revealed few details, but says the death was sudden.
Well, I think anytime a child dies unexpectedly, it's considered a sudden death. This wasn't something that was expected. And I think based on the injuries that the child received, that's why the Vancouver Island Major Crime Unit has stepped in and assumed conduct of this investigation.
Manceau says that there were other children inside the residence and they have been temporarily placed in other residences while this investigation takes place. Police have been in touch with the Ministry of Children and Family Development. The ministry did issue a statement and they said that this is a terrible tragedy. Our hearts go out to the child's family and community. And they aren't saying much due to privacy reasons. RCMP say that more information is expected to be released next week.
All right, thank you so much. That's our Mira Baines reporting live tonight. The BC government is putting the Chilliwack School Board under the microscope. 2 special advisors have been appointed to look into whether the board is doing enough to foster an inclusive learning environment and whether trustees are acting in accordance with staff and students' human rights. The evaluation will also look into whether the board is able to fulfill its duties, among other questions. The province said last month it was considering all options surrounding controversial trustee Barry Neufeld, and that included perhaps firing the entire board. Neufeld has spoken out against gender-inclusive curriculum and last month used a slur to describe 3 local reporters.
A BC couple was hit with a large phone bill for going over their allotted minutes while the husband was in hospital. But when they asked their phone company for a break, they felt they were being brushed off. 77-year-old Graham Boyle was in hospital for vascular surgeries. He wasn't allowed visitors, so he stayed in touch with his wife Kathleen and his family by phone. The couple went over its cell plan minutes and was suddenly hit with a bill for almost $900.
I was stunned. My initial thought was, this is a mistake, and I tried to contact them immediately.
Kathleen admitted they unknowingly made a mistake, but asked Fido if it could make an exception given the circumstances. She says the mobile carrier said there wasn't much it could do, which raises a question about whether compassion and big business can or should coexist.
Businesses spend a lot of money trying to tell their story about how they're good citizens and how they treat stakeholders well. And there can be really expenditures that are potentially quite small, but can be very meaningful in a specific context.
After being contacted by CBC News, Fido offered to waive the bill. In a statement, it said, "It's important we treat every customer with compassion and understanding. We know how critical it is for our customers to stay connected."
The provincial government has now committed a total of $105 million to help BC's pandemic-stricken tourism sector. Today, it announced another $50 million that will add to the $50 million that was already announced in September. BC has also set aside $5 million specifically for Indigenous tourism businesses. It comes after a task force compiled a report on government support recommendations it says would help the industry bounce back. The head of that task force says this funding is just the first step in the COVID recovery process.
And tourism isn't the only industry getting a boost. Restaurants are getting a financial hand up as well. The province slapping a temporary cap on the fees that food delivery companies are allowed to charge.
They need our support right now. And we're committed to helping them weather the storm of the COVID-19 pandemic, however possible.
As of Sunday, there will be a 15% limit on how much companies like Uber Eats can charge restaurants. It follows pandemic-triggered complaints that those services have been gouging too deeply into their bottom line. A limit of 5% has also been set on related fees like payment processing for online orders. The changes will be in place until 3 months after the provincial health emergency eventually ends.
A train derailment near Birch Bay in Washington State this morning caused the evacuation of nearby homes, businesses, and a school after several cars caught fire. This derailment happened near the I-5, about 10 kilometers south of the Canadian border. BNSF Railway says no one aboard the northbound train was injured and that the cars are carrying crude oil. The company says 3 out of the 10 derailed train cars caught fire. The Whatcom County Sheriff's Office says those fires are still active and yet to be under control. A 3/4-mile evacuation zone was set up earlier, but now local residents have been allowed to return. The cause of the derailment is under investigation.
Well, thousands of people are still without power tonight on the Lower Mainland after snow blanketed the region yesterday and played havoc with the grid.
Our Isabel Regam is live for us in one of the hardest hit areas tonight. So Isabel, just how bad is it out there right now?
Well, about 10,000 customers are still without power. That's more than 24 hours without heat, without power, in the dark. And as you can tell here in Langley, the steam out of my mouth here, it's pretty cold. So it's a cold night to be in the dark without any power. And some of the hardest hit areas include here in Langley, but also Chilliwack, Maple Ridge. BC Hydro says one of the hardest parts of all of this was that there was wet snow in that snowstorm that we saw on Monday, and that fell on tree branches and sometimes falling on wires. Now, they say that they have restored power to 90% of customers that lost power, but still there is that 10% just a few days before Christmas still in the dark. And now BC Hydro says getting access to those problem spots is one of their biggest challenges.
Unfortunately, in some of the harder hit areas that have those really big challenges, access challenges, lots of snow and ice, they're harder for our crews to get to.
And Isabel, what's the situation like outside of the Lower Mainland?
Well, on Vancouver Island and on the Gulf Islands, about 6,000 customers are still in the dark. At peak, there was about 83,000 customers without power there on the island and Gulf Islands. And BC Hydro says part of the challenge restoring power on the island is they typically have crews coming from the Lower Mainland to Vancouver Island to help out restore power. But with BC Ferries cancellations last night, that meant severe delays. Now, here's the good news. BC Hydro says they're expecting that 99% of customers that lost power will have the power back by tonight, but there's still that 1%, and that's about 2,000 customers that won't be getting power until Wednesday, tomorrow. And again, just a few days before Christmas, pretty stressful to be happening. Mike, Tanya.
You bet. Thank you so much. That's our Isabel Regam reporting live for us tonight. And with that, let's bring in our meteorologist, Nick Czernkovich. And Nick, this is almost 48 hours later, but we're still seeing the after effects. I hope we've gotten nothing like that on tap for the next few days.
You know what? I think we've turned a corner here, and the temperatures will warm, which is going to melt a lot of this stuff, but not for a few days. Now, I want to show you some of the accumulations that we had over the last, let's say, 48 hours or so. And this is just a selection of some of the numbers that Environment Canada put out. Obviously, in the higher elevations there, we're seeing close to 0.5 meter of snowfall, but even Chilliwack, 15 centimeters of snow, Victoria, 5 centimeters of snow, Malahat, 20 centimeters of snow, Nanaimo at 13 centimeters. And again, you heard it earlier, but it's that heavy, wet snow as temperatures were right around that zero mark. And that's a big part of the problem. Now, we are done with the snow. That's the good news in all of this. In fact, satellite and radar imagery, if you didn't get a chance to get out today, we're looking at basically just a mix of sun and cloud. Our next weather maker is still well off the coast, and that's not going to be until Christmas Day. In fact, you look at the next couple of days, and we've got, for the most part, sunshine here in the forecast. Heading into tomorrow morning, we've got just a little bit of cloud cover that's going to pass through during the morning hours, and then as we head into the afternoon, I think we're going to be into basically just sunny skies. Same story as we head into Thursday as well for Christmas Eve. Now, that system is going to make its way toward the coast as we hit Friday or Christmas Day, but it's not a lot of rainfall. I'll have more on that coming up in just a bit. For now, though, here's a look at the next 24 hours. Again, expect the sunshine, light winds, and highs tomorrow to 4 degrees. Mike and Tanya.
All right. Well, we will enjoy those clear skies, if not a bit cooler. Thanks so much, Nick. We'll talk to you soon. A local charity that operates a food bank has been working hard to keep up with demand right now. Every week, volunteers at the City Reach Care Society collect and pack the food hampers with fresh produce and other staples. The group provides low-income households in Vancouver and Port Coquitlam with around 1,000 food hampers every week. And the demand for their food bank has only increased since the onset of the pandemic.
Previously, we were serving about 100, 150 families per week. We're now upwards, like I mentioned, that we're packing close to 1,000 food hampers. So our program has developed and expanded quite exponentially over these last 9 months.
And to meet the needs of the community, she says they're always on the lookout for more volunteers.
And a reminder, you can also watch our newscasts live on the free CBC Gem app.
That is how a lot of you are watching right now, actually. And CBC Vancouver is also on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram.
Health officials warning the more transmittable variant of COVID-19 is everywhere. Why that means the UK is facing a widespread lockdown and what that means for flights between Canada and the UK. Next.
And thanks for staying with us during our commercial-free live stream. Well, Canadians haven't been doing as much traveling this year because of the pandemic.
So we thought we'd offer you some virtual views of holiday lights from across the country. From Santa to Smurfs, there's plenty of outdoor cheer this year. Have a look. a little tour across the country to see what other folks are doing.
The music was nice, too. Get us in the spirit.
Exactly. All right, back in just a couple of seconds. Lots of COVID-19 news from across the country and around the world. Stay right here.
Welcome back. Let's head overseas now. And most EU countries have blocked all travel from Britain in hopes of guarding against the new COVID-19 variant. There is a deal now to allow thousands of stranded truck drivers to cross over into France. But as Farah Morelli shows us, it's still a mess.
A truck's side hatch serves as a makeshift table on day 2 for thousands of stranded drivers.
We tried to find some place to sleep. It was so difficult for us. We are tired, we are disappointed. Aquí parado?
I've been here for 3 days now, this driver from Spain says, adding that he and others have not been offered food, drinks, or sanitation. The situation is basically inhumane, he says. Late today, a deal was struck to reopen this crossing to France. It closed Sunday amid fears of the new coronavirus variant spreading. Drivers with a recent negative COVID test will be allowed to cross.
We really ought to be finding a way now of getting them all tested as quick as possible, bringing in, we have the army available, right? Bring them in, mass, and get these drivers tested, and let's get them home.
What planned mass testing tomorrow will look like is unclear. Local officials estimate there are nearly 3,000 trucks stuck at this crossing, so while the border is opening, delays will continue, prompting fears of food shortages in the UK. Some shops are now introducing limits on products like toilet paper to stop panic buying. At the same time, a deadline for a Brexit trade deal is just 9 days away.
And all of this feels like it's coming together into a pretty major sense of crisis, actually.
The current border disruption, a sign of what may be to come.
If we don't have a trade deal between Britain and the EU, then disruption is going to become a way of life, because the EU has already said it will impose tariffs and it will impose customs checks and checks on the safety of food and animal products.
So while it's the end of what's been a long few days for these drivers, it might just be the start of a different chaos come January 1st. Farah Morelli, CBC News, London.
The CEO of BioNTech remains confident in his company's COVID-19 vaccine. This despite news of a coronavirus variant discovered, as you saw in the UK.
So we will build this new mutation into our assay system and will evaluate if the immune response against our vaccine is able to inactivate also this virus variant. We are confident that this will be the case. 99% of this virus protein is not changed. Only 1% is, or less than 1% is changed. So the likelihood is high that the vaccine can deal with that. But we have to do the experiment.
The BioNTech vaccine was developed with U.S. pharmaceutical company Pfizer and is already authorized for use in more than 45 countries, including Canada. The company hopes to have confirmation of the vaccine's viability in the next 2 weeks.
The top U.S. infectious disease specialist says it's possible that the new strain of coronavirus from the UK could have already reached North America. Here's part of Dr. Anthony Fauci's interview that airs tonight on The National.
You know, I think it's a reasonably good chance that it already is, because it is so dominant in a certain section, the southeast section of England, of the UK, that I would not be surprised that if it already is at low levels in other countries that have not yet detected it, including Canada, including the United States. Can't say for sure, but I would not be surprised if, as surveillance picked it up, someone came out and said, you know, we do have it in a certain part of a country, whether it's in Canada or the United States. Can't tell for sure, but I wouldn't be surprised.
And if you'd like to see more of that interview, you can tune into The National tonight for the full interview with Dr. Anthony Fauci.
While it is possible the new variant has reached Canada, the federal government says it hasn't been able to identify its presence yet. As David Cochrane reports, health officials are taking some extra precautions.
To date, we have not seen this variant.
Just because they haven't found it doesn't mean it isn't here. So a scavenger hunt of old and new testing samples is underway to make sure.
We're still going to be doing more testing and sequencing in the days to come. But it wouldn't surprise me that this variant is in many different countries.
News of the mutation comes as Ontario locks down and Premier Doug Ford ratchets up the blame, calling for testing for international travelers at airports.
Without further action by the federal government at our borders, we remain at extreme risk right now.
Ford's party sent an email blast to supporters asking them to sign this petition because our borders are a real problem and enough is enough. The time for action is now.
We've heard a number of comments which frankly are an unfortunate misrepresentation of what is actually happening at our borders.
Blair says Canada's border measures are strong and have only been enhanced with the news out of the UK. But he says the data that closely matches what Ontario publishes on its website makes it clear the border isn't the problem.
COVID-19 cases related to international travel currently account for only 1.8% of all cases. That means 98.2% of COVID transmissions are a result of community transmissions, not international travel.
Amidst the anxiety and the political bickering, some good news. Moderna has submitted its final data to Health Canada seeking approval for its vaccine. The health minister says a final decision is expected very soon. David Cochrane, CBC News, Ottawa.
The isolation imposed by the pandemic has affected people from all walks of life. And for places like Ronald McDonald House that offer a temporary home away from home for families of sick children, it's meant some big changes. And as Hilary Johnstone tells us tonight, that can make situations that are already challenging even harder.
The anxiety and uncertainty many Canadians experience this year is nothing new to Gregory Cole. His 8-year-old son Jesse is fighting a rare type of cancer. In a few days, the Coles will spend their second Christmas at Ottawa's Ronald McDonald House near the Children's Hospital.
He really wants to be at home. He misses his grandparents. He misses being at home, playing on his treehouse, and having all the fun stuff that he used to have.
Ronald McDonald houses give families with sick kids a place to live so they don't have to commute to hospitals. When the pandemic hit, the charity was forced to make changes to its communal home setting.
The kids that stay with us are already very sick. I mean, to think that they're spending months at CHIO during a global pandemic, they've got to be really ill. And we just want to keep them as safe and support their parents as best we can.
The 16 Ronald McDonald houses across Canada cut capacity. Extended family members can't come visit, and at some locations, neither can siblings. It's also asking families to limit how often they go home.
It's been a lot harder on families who are already having such a hard time. They're already far from home, far from their families, and now they have to stay far from each other. So
Gregory Cole says he's hopeful the communal feeling here will eventually return.
I miss coming down and seeing all the kids at nighttime sitting on the carpet or sitting in the chairs reading a book or playing a game in the playroom. And the interaction with all the other parents, I miss that.
Next month will mark a full year since the Coles stepped foot in their house. In a year when many Canadians feel like they've spent too much time at home, the Coles can't wait to get back home with their son. Hilary Johnstone, CBC News, Ottawa.
They're still picking up the pieces from their worst election defeat in decades. How the BC Liberals plan to act as opposition during a pandemic while also trying to turn the tide on a rebuild. We sit down with interim leader Shirley Bond for a one-on-one interview next.
In just a few days, freight trains will start rolling through a brand new tunnel in the Rocky Mountains. It was a massive job, and it's the key for the huge Rogers Pass project. CP Rail says the tunnel means it will be able to move twice as many trains through the Rockies as it can now. Des Guilfoyle reports from Glacier National Park.
The locomotive does a test run through a new tunnel. The Rogers Pass project is all but finished. This tunnel is 15 kilometers long, 9 miles, drilled through solid rock. The longest railway tunnel in North America. The location, this 34-kilometer stretch of new track runs through the heart of the Selkirk Mountains, some of the toughest real estate in the world. The Rogers Pass project has taken 4 years to finish, but the story goes back more than a century, back to when CP Rail and Canada were born. The Rogers Pass project is really the final installment of the national dream. The Transcontinental was a mind-boggling feat of engineering. It cost $25 million, a huge fortune in those days. There was another big cost as well. Hundreds of workers died, especially in the Rockies, where the tracks often had to be suspended on wooden trestles over huge mountain gorges. When the last spike was driven in 1885, there was a tremendous outpouring of nationalism as the railway bound the new nation together from sea to shining sea. But for all of the dreams of nationalism and the romantic images of the birth of a nation, building the Transcontinental was a business decision. A decision which sent CP Rail well on the way to becoming one of the largest transportation companies in the world. Blasting a new rail line through Rogers Pass was also a business decision. CP Rail had been losing money to trucks hauling goods to the West Coast. The main problem was a bottleneck at Rogers Pass. Unlike the rest of the railway system across the country, there was only a single track here, and the grade was so steep that 6 pusher locomotives had to help the long, heavy freights over the summit.
We had a capacity problem back in the late 1970s and early 1980s. We knew we had to do something.
Like those who built the Transcontinental, the workers cutting through Rogers Pass learned that the Rockies are still an awesome barrier. It would take 850 workers 4 years to finish the job. 2 men would die horribly, crushed by train wheels. The tunnel through Mount Macdonald, named after our first Prime Minister, was at the heart of the project. In the race against time, the mountain was attacked from 2 sides.
Here are some of the stories we're following tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
This vaccine is going to be available to everybody in the coming weeks, and I encourage everybody to be immunized.
Provincial Health Officer Dr. Bonnie Henry and dozens of healthcare workers around BC received the first dose of the COVID-19 vaccine today. More than 4,100 healthcare workers have now been vaccinated in our province. It comes as 444 new cases are recorded and 12 more deaths in the last day. That is, though, the lowest number of daily new cases since November 5th. That was 2 days before restrictions were implemented in the Vancouver coastal and Fraser Health regions.
Why do they want to make it so difficult for people that need the money?
Many BC recovery benefit applicants are frustrated over what they're calling a bureaucratic minefield. They're disappointed to learn there are more steps to take before they can expect to receive any money. Finance Minister says 700,000 British Columbians will receive benefit payments by Christmas.
Today's order is another way we can provide supports to our local restaurants and hospitality businesses.
The province issues an order to keep food delivery companies from digging too deep into the profits of local restaurants. Starting Sunday, there will be a temporary cap of 15% that delivery services can charge restaurants. It follows pandemic-triggered complaints that companies like DoorDash, Skip the Dishes, and Uber Eats have been charging restaurants 30% for deliveries. The order will be in place until 3 months after the provincial state of emergency is eventually lifted.
Turning to provincial politics now, and the BC Liberals are entering 2021 with grand ambitions to renew and rebuild. While the party faces its own identity crisis, it is simultaneously balancing its role of holding government to account during a pandemic. Tanya sat down with interim leader Shirley Bond. Here's part of their year-end interview.
You've been an MLA for almost 20 years now, and you've seen your party succeed. You've also seen your party fail. Why did your party fail so badly in this last election?
I think it's an important question, and as a party, we have a responsibility to look back, learn about what we could do better. What is it going to take for us to resonate better with British Columbians, particularly in urban BC? And our goal is to listen, to learn, and then to plan for a future leadership campaign. And I can tell you I'm actually really excited about the opportunity that lies ahead for the party.
The former leader of your party, Andrew Wilkinson himself, said that renewal was a priority, but currently there are fewer women, fewer minorities, and fewer MLAs under the age of 50 in your current caucus. Is there anything you can do now or plan to do to start to address those issues even in your interim role?
Absolutely, and I've already heard from women across the province, first of all, who are pleased to see that there are now 2 leaders of parties in the legislature in British Columbia, and that's an important step. But we need to be very intentional in our actions. We need to make sure that our party in the future and moving ahead reflects the faces of all British Columbians. We need to focus on being more diverse, being more inclusive, and that starts with creating an environment in caucus where people are respected and heard. Our team is really supportive of one another, and I think that will be demonstrated in the months and weeks ahead.
You talk about the need to refresh and rebuild. You are the second longest serving Liberal MLA. So with all due respect, how can you be the face of the party's renewal, even if just temporarily?
Well, first of all, I think that every team needs experience and it needs new MLAs. And we are very, very lucky to have 5 fantastic new talented MLAs. But you also need to have people with experience as you look to the past, learn from the successes and the challenges that we've faced. I'm very much looking forward to the leadership contest that will emerge over the next period of time. In the meantime, we have work to do. We've rolled up our sleeves, and I have a fantastic group of MLAs to work with.
Early in the pandemic, there was a very nonpartisan approach to dealing, with COVID-19. That partisanship has returned, especially over economic recovery issues that you've talked about. But given the months of rising case counts, we're now into double-digit deaths every day, it seems. Is it time for criticism on the health policy side of things?
That's a fantastic question, and I am strongly supportive of the approach we took during the summer as we came together and unanimously provided support to British Columbians. We agreed to a $5 billion aid package, but I think you've seen that over the last number of days, we've tried in a very respectful and thoughtful way, ask questions that British Columbians are asking, not just about the economic side, but about the healthcare side. And I think that is a reasonable approach. It is not meant in any way to undermine or diminish the advice being provided by Dr. Henry and our provincial health officials. It is, however, to ask important questions like the use of rapid testing in long-term care homes in British Columbia. Of course, we need to support the work that's being done by medical professionals, but I think there is room to ask those important questions that British Columbians are raising, and they're doing it in a very thoughtful way. Again, most people want to be in compliance. Sometimes they're just not clear about what that actually looks like.
All right, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you so much for your time today.
You're most welcome. Thank you for the opportunity.
Are you buying fewer presents this year, or perhaps none at all? Just ahead, how the pandemic is forcing many to make a tough choice when it comes to gift giving.
20 to 7 Tuesday night. There's a live look at Grouse Mountain this evening. Lots more snow up there after a gorgeous day on the south coast. Can we make it back-to-back days with sunshine? Nick's going to let us know next.
I think people need to remember that, it's okay to be upset when you're disappointed. and to be a bit more compassionate for themselves individually and as a family and as a group. They were looking forward to an activity. And then after they've done that, to really step back and reframe, because this is not a punishment, the fact that we're not able to get together. And also to remember that this is an opportunity to also honor the social contract. We do have a social contract. We live in a collectively within a society. And the decision not to get together and have a big celebration for Christmas is really an opportunity for us to collectively contribute to the well-being of the society. So I think it's important to take that step back and to look at this as an opportunity also to connect with ourselves, to reconnect with the people that are close to us in our household in a more intimate way, sleep in without having to think about we have to wake up early, cook, prepare, all the pressures of preparing to receive, to have guests come in. And because we're not meeting, we actually have more time to spend quality time on the phone, or a quality text, or a quality email. Those things that we might not have had time to do before. Now we have the time to actually sit and write cards. These days, not that many people receive cards, holiday wishes, through the post, through the post. It doesn't mean that we cannot celebrate later. It will be a different celebration. So I would suggest that, go out and continue to buy those gifts for those people that you intended to buy gifts for, and you will exchange those gifts at a later date. It may be 3 months from now, it may be 6 months from now, but just imagine that celebration. And it gives us even more time to plan for something that's different, more exciting. Maybe it's going to be in the spring or in the summer, in which case its celebration may be outdoors.
The Market Report is brought to you by Fortis BC. We've got even bigger rebates. Whoa! On select high-efficiency equipment for business, but only for a limited time.
With stores in Toronto locked down and gatherings restricted during the pandemic, Canadians will probably be spending less this Christmas.
For some, it's a financial necessity, but for others, foregoing gifts is a choice this year. The CBC's Ellen Morrow explains.
At Cassandra Plukov's house, it looks like Christmas as usual, but in 2020, it's anything but.
We're just gonna keep it simple and focus on what's important, our close family, and being healthy and being safe.
These are Plukov Christmases past, filled with family gatherings and gift giving. Not so this strange year. The Plukovs choosing to skip presents altogether.
We all just sort of looked at each other and said, well, I don't think that's going to be happening this year. I mean, what do we really need?
They're not alone. Canadians are expected to spend about 20% less this year on the holidays, according to a Deloitte Canada survey.
People's pockets are just a little bit tighter and debt levels a little bit higher. That kind of points to that 20%, which is a big reduction for retailers.
Retailers who've already taken a terrible hit.
The ones that will get hurt the most are probably those local, unfortunately, the local mom and pop shops.
The choice to give up gift giving is not unexpected, given the toll of the pandemic, says this psychologist.
When people go through a health crisis, it really makes them reevaluate what's important and what really matters to them. And basically, as a planet, we've gone through a health crisis.
For Roger Wiebe, 2020 brought personal crisis too. Both he and his wife let go from their jobs. With no money to spare, Christmas will be just another day this year.
People have lights out on the streets and everything, but there's no Christmas. We can't afford it. I just called or set a food bank appointment.
Still, the Edmonton couple is trying to stay positive.
There's a lot more people even worse off than me. So I'm thankful for what we have. It is a struggle, but at least we have a warm house, roof over our head.
And hope for the greatest gift of all, that better days are on the horizon with 2020 on the way out. Ellen Morrow, CBC News, Toronto.
Johanna Wagstaff off this week. Nick Czernkovich is joining us now with the forecast. Power still out for some folks tonight, Nick, but we seem to have survived the blizzard of the first day of winter. It was a gorgeous day today. Stunning.
Yeah. Well, the snow came right in time for winter, and the next day is the cleanup. But yeah, like you said, the weather at least cooperating for the cleanup. We've got temperatures that were sitting, at least in some parts, just above the 0 mark, so that'll help with some of the melting, but the sunshine as well. And we're going to see that sticking around for the next couple of days. There's a look at some of the current temperatures across the region there, just above the 0 mark. We are going to spend a couple of the nights below the seasonal mark by a few degrees, but as we head into the weekend, temperatures back up at normal or even above seasonal for some areas as well. There's a broader look across the region there with temperatures to the north, a little bit colder, of course, as expected. Now, what we are watching, though, is this system that's coming in off the coast. It's not going to be our weather maker as we head through tomorrow or even as we move into Thursday. It's really Friday and into the weekend where this is going to bring some rainfall for parts of the lower mainland and then into the BC interior as well. What we're looking at here is you've put the forecast board into motion. By the time we hit tomorrow morning, a little bit of morning cloud cover across most parts, but as we move into the afternoon, expect to see sunshine. And that sticks around as well as we go into Thursday morning. There's the timestamp there, and Thursday evening as well. By the time we hit Friday morning, though, Christmas morning, this is where we're looking at a few showers moving in, mostly across Vancouver Island. It's not going to be until we get into the afternoon where we're going to see these rain showers making their way onshore. That being said, we're not talking about a lot of rainfall here. We're just talking about showers, not much in the way of accumulations. For tomorrow, winds generally pretty calm. We could see periodic gusts up to about 15, 20 kilometers per hour, but by and large, winds about 10 kilometers per hour as we move through tomorrow. Forecast-wise across the region, again, a little bit below seasonal, but lots in the way of sunshine there. Same story as we zoom in a little bit more local as well. Temperatures just above the 0 mark. As we move through the next 5 days, you can expect to see a pair of 4s there for Wednesday and Thursday. Of course, that's Christmas Eve. And then, of course, the showers moving in on Friday. Saturday and Sunday, more in the way of steady rainfall, but you see the average highs closer to about 6 degrees. So once we hit Christmas Day, we're looking at temperatures that'll be at or above the seasonal mark. Like Tanya.
Well, we like that. Thanks, Nick.
You bet.
Well, like most restaurant owners across Canada, Michelle Lee's Korean restaurant struggled when the pandemic hit. Suddenly, her typically bustling business sat empty.
Well, to get more takeout customers, Michelle's daughter Diana encouraged her to do cooking tutorials, uploading them to social media.
And as Kelda Ewan found out, they gained more than just a loyal following in the process.
The pandemic may have slowed down things a bit, but inside this kitchen, the work hasn't stopped.
Hi, my name is Michelle. I am Kimchi Korea House restaurant owner.
For my mom, like, the restaurant is her life. Like, you know, like she said, she's here 7 days a week, open to close.
It's been that way for Michelle Lee ever since she opened the restaurant back in 2012. Then this past March,
and suddenly lockdown, and I was a little scared.
her daughter Diana quickly helped to set up the restaurant on all the food delivery apps. Then she had another idea.
You just would drop one. Ooh, it's ready.
I thought it might be a good and fun distraction to start filming some tutorials with her.
But she really pushing me.
Diana posted the videos on social media and they took off.
Medium heat with about 5 minutes, 3 minutes.
The restaurant's Instagram has now grown to more than 5,000 followers, people loving Mama Lee's tutorials of classic Korean dishes.
Kimchi pancake, seafood pancake. And also number one is kimchi. I like a red color.
When we film, it's usually just the two of us in the kitchen. Is really just like a mom talking to her daughter, teaching her how to cook, and I think that feeling really comes across.
So a lot of customers, I never saw it. They coming, they saw me. Are you Mama Lee?
The restaurant is doing better during this second wave, but the videos were never just about getting more business.
And I really wanted to convey to people how much work that it takes for my mom to make each and every single dish at the restaurant. And it's really just a labor of love.
Tonight, I'm gonna show you how to make a japchae.
It's brought the two of us closer together, and I think a lot of times I took my mom's cooking for granted, thinking I would never have to learn how to make it, or, you know, she's always gonna be around, so I don't need to learn how to make it. So that's what this experience has really brought for me, is more in touch with the Korean side of my heritage.
Thank you for watching.
Kelda Yoon, CBC News, Toronto.
It's a lip sync contest with a difference, put together by those with intellectual disabilities, featuring contestants who have disabilities. Why it's the first of its kind and who's behind it, next.
In Search of Christmas Spirit is a completely immersive experience, unlike any other, I think, that Banff has offered. You begin at Banff Square and you are given a lantern and you go on a journey. You go on a search for the Christmas spirit. You're greeted by a ginormous, beautiful owl puppet that is, of course, lit. And the owl sort of encourages you on this journey. You head to Cascade Gardens, and the spirit is answered by these beautiful sculptures and sounds of what we come to the mountains to seek. This sort of spiritual awakening, this comfort, this revitalization, rejuvenation that the mountains give us. People need to be invigorated. They need to have their spirits awakened. And that's what this trail is about. You see some beautiful things. It's a soundscape. So there's music and sound within these walls, these treed walls, if you will. And there's beautiful sculpture by Indigenous sculptor painter Jason Carter, who has taken his sculptures, which are usually about 24 to 36 inches. And within the trail, they're anywhere from 14 feet high to 12 feet long. And they're lit from within. There's a beauty, a light within these animals, but also it's what we seek within ourselves to kind of carry us through this year that some would say has been slightly challenging. There's the pine marten, there's a big, beautiful bison, there's jumping fish, there's a howling wolf, there's a mother bear and cubs. You're going to see northern lights through magic of light and fog. It's a beautiful thing. And then, of course, there's the magic of the field of flowers at the very end. And hopefully the spirit of Christmas is infused in you. And the idea is that you have been given the gift of the spirit of Christmas, and it now is yours to give, so that you take this and pass it on. Right now, it's specifically for locals. Obviously, it was intended to be built for, the world to come and see. But right now, due to the pandemic, due to restrictions, we're just making it a local event.
It's been really tough and challenging here in Banff, as it has been in many places. But our businesses, our residents, have weathered a lot through COVID. And the safety of our community, the health of our community, the resiliency of our community is important to Banff Lake Louise tourism. So we wanted to give this as a bit of a gift back to our community and promise that we are planning on bringing this back and would love to be able to welcome visitors from the region and further abroad next year to come and experience what I think has turned into a really, really unique, interesting event.
Some people were actually in tears because we've missed art, we've missed culture, we've missed sound, and there is something so beautiful about the setting that this is all happening in. And that's exactly what our intention was with this, was to create a sense of hope, of spirit, and that we will get through this, that each of the animals represents a spirit that we need right now.
Well, Christmas arrived early for some lucky primates at the London Zoo. These western lowland gorillas were treated to an array of brightly wrapped gifts scattered across their enclosure. Each contained edible treats from the zookeepers. The apes will also enjoy a special breakfast on Christmas Day. Zoo officials wanted the animals to enjoy the holiday season, especially because pandemic restrictions have meant no visitors for much of the year.
A lip sync video contest is being held to celebrate people with disabilities, and it's hosted by people with disabilities.
The international event is from L'Arche, Canada, which helps people with intellectual disabilities.
John Tatry has more on what the organization says is the first contest of its kind.
Everybody is pumped. I don't think you're ready for this, Julie. Or this.
That's Nick Hurd, co-host of L'Arche Canada's The Battle of the Fans. The lip sync contest features songs like Give Up the Funk and Bye Bye Bye.
One of my favorite videos is by Lars Toronto, Lady Marmalade from the movie Moulin Rouge, which is one of my favorite musicals.
Most videos have a celebrity cameo at the end celebrating people with disabilities, like Didi Khan, who played Frenchie in Grease. Her son has autism.
He has taught me so many things. He has taught me how to be patient. He has taught me to love him in the way that he needs to be loved.
Hurd has faced double discrimination, both as a gay man and as a person with Down syndrome.
And hearing those messages from other celebrities make me feel really happy about it. I feel excited, happy, and also there's a little bit emotional because I've been through discrimination.
Lindsay Quimby and Damien Chavot live in L'Arche, Cape Breton. They were part of the team that created videos for I Would Do Anything for Love, and All I Want for Christmas. The Mariah Carey song features a mystery box containing a prize that is probably at the top of everyone's list this year. Quimby pulled on a leather jacket and danced to the top of the pyramid in the Grease Lightning video.
It's something I can dance to. It's, it's very, I would say very lively.
Chavot has helped with the editing.
We're proud of who we are, whatever your disability is, we can be proud of it, and we all have disabilities,
The contest ends this week. They hope to run it again next year. John Tatry, CBC News, Halifax.
And it is a contest, so some pretty good lip syncing going on there.
Yeah, well done. That's very exciting. Good for them. Yeah. I want to see the results for sure. You can always watch our newscasts online, by the way, at cbc.ca/BC.
Dan Bird's here at 11 o'clock right after the National. We're going to leave you tonight. Yes, it's a hummingbird. Overwintering one in the snow. Have a great night. Thanks for watching.
Good night.